Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about Ghostbusters 2016. I know it seems kind of odd. It's been 4 years. This movie is a dead meme at this point, but it has recently come up in the news, in the media, for a couple of reasons. We previously talked about it last week when the director of Ghostbusters 2016 threatened the fans with saying he would release a 3.5-hour extended cut. This is something no one asked for. This movie was reviled by everyone. Almost everyone hated it except for the far left SJW crowd who defended it, of course, because it was politically relevant to them and it was spreading liberal propaganda. And once again, this movie has come up again recently, probably because of that terrible announcement, and now people are talking Ghostbusters again. And I think it also has to do with the election season coming back around. Ghostbusters 2016 came out during the last election year. 4 years later, it makes sense to kind of talk about it again, which is what we're going to be doing today. We're talking about the director once again who said something silly. This time he's talking about how Trump was to blame for the controversy that surrounded that film and things going on that year. He wants to blame Trump basically for Ghostbusters 2016 failing, and I think that's a pretty bold claim to say the least. I mean, first of all, Trump had little, if anything, to do with the actual movie. The two didn't correlate directly at all. There are some tertiary, like external factors that could see them kind of getting involved. I'll admit there is a little bit of a connection because it happened in the same year, and a lot of this had to do with the culture war with Hillary versus Trump, left versus right, and Ghostbusters found itself right in the middle of that, but that was their own making. I mean, Feig tries to act like this happened to him for no reason, but it did. They wanted to make this movie political. They wanted to make it a feminist thing. They wanted to get Hillary supporting it and all that stuff. So they made their bed. They chose to do this and make it more political than it needed to be. Ghostbusters could have just been a funny thing like the original movies. There wasn't like talk about politics and social issues and lots of serious SJW stuff in it at all. So the new movie having that kind of asked for it. And in addition, it wasn't Trump's fault or like Trump specifically. It was just a lot of people hated it. And sure, of course, Trump supporters and conservatives and Americans are not going to be a fan of a movie that's kind of anti-white male dudes. It's not going to be a good time for them, and it's not going to appeal to the crowd that you're antagonizing. It all makes sense. It's all a silly claim by Paul Feig, and it just goes to show that he isn't letting this go. The director and some of the people that worked on that movie, they still want to pretend Ghostbusters 2016 was this big success. They want to pretend they didn't mess things up and ruin the franchise, lose the studio money, and cause them to move in a totally different direction with the new movie Afterlife. Ghostbusters Afterlife is coming out next year now. But that's besides the point. I want to get back to this Paul Feig stuff. Him blaming Trump is really hilarious. I got the story from this article, which also has a video. It's called Paul Feig Says Trump and Anti-Hillary Movement Helped Fuel Ghostbusters Reboot Backlash. Everyone was at a boiling point, the director said, about 2016's heated political climate. Now, again, like I said, I can be fair. I can understand this movie got wrapped up into the thing. But to say Trump and the anti-Hillary movement, to kind of like point and direct the blame at someone else, it's very, very cheap. It seems like he's trying to cop out and get out of trouble for kind of ruining this franchise. And in a lot of ways he is. And it's just been pathetic seeing Paul Feig and other kind of SJWs try and pretend the movie wasn't awful. I mean, end of the day, despite everything that's going on the outside, the movie was really bad. If you watch what happens between the opening credits and the end credits, it's not a good picture. So that could have changed people's views. Like if it was good, it could have gotten a fan base despite all the politics and all the drama. But the fact that it wasn't good is what really ruined it at the end of the day. And then the circling stuff around it definitely had an influence, and it really more influenced the conversation and what people got out of it, why people pointed out the SJW stuff, the feminist messages, the anti-male stuff, and all that came together. And sure, there's parts that are related to that. I think Trump and his fan base might have played some kind of factor, but to blame the backlash on them is way too far. So let's start by watching this interview video and then we'll get to the article.
I want to know if you would reflect on Ghostbusters, which I loved and was so excited to see. And Chris Hemsworth in comedy was such a revelation, but it also was such a weird year. And after Trump was elected, I thought I should have seen this coming. There was such a large part of the country that was so angry that women were Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That should have been a red flag.
Jeez, these guys just don't get the point at all. They just always go back to this girl thing. That's what they said in the last video we talked about it. They try to blame it, like Screen Rant was saying this in the previous article we read, and they were saying people didn't like Ghostbusters 2016 because it was female led, like because there were girl Ghostbusters. That's not the reason, though. I went through a lot of stuff in this intro. I've talked about it in multiple videos. It's never been because they're girls. It doesn't matter. We like girl led stuff. I liked the Wonder Woman movie. I liked Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad, not in Birds of Prey, of course. But yeah, we like girl characters. There's not an issue there. The problem was kind of rebooting and making a lady reboot of Ghostbusters, which was previously a guy thing. So that might sound like I'm saying the same thing twice, but really there's a difference. You're not mad because it's a girl-led project. We're mad because they took over a previously male one. And then in addition, they put in this SJW stuff. They went all feminist. They attacked men, made Chris Hemsworth this kind of like beta character that all the other Ghostbusters ripped on. There's a number of reasons, but it's not because of girls. It's not because things are sexist. They try to tie that in with Hillary Clinton too, because Hillary lost, and they want to say, oh, everyone that voted for Trump is sexist. That's the whole implication here, and it has nothing to do with that. It just really is these liberals, and obviously this chick is some kind of SJW too, and they just can't face the truth and the fact that people didn't like the movie, and it was a bad idea. It was something no one asked for, and it really just is that simple.
And I wanted to know if you would reflect on that time and just how weird it was when Ghostbusters came out and how there were so many people that loved it, but there was this weird vitriol towards it.
Well, before Paul Feig speaks, I want to say she said so many people loved it. If that was true, it would have made money. It would have made more money. And look at her little concerned face. Like they try to pretend everyone loved this movie when really it wasn't well liked. It would have sold more tickets, like it would have made more money, but it failed. It's a failure. Okay, just because you liked it and it supported your BS, like it doesn't mean it was a good movie. It wasn't.
Yeah, I think some really brilliant author or researcher or sociologist needs to write a book about 2016 and how intertwined we were with Hillary and the anti-Hillary movement, and like it was just this year where I don't know, everyone went to a boiling point. I don't know if it was having African American president for 8 years, teed them up or something.
What? What? Okay. Sorry. I just had a whoa moment. So he tried to bring Obama into this. He thinks because we had an African American president for 8 years, that led to people getting mad about Ghostbusters, and ipso facto, this is why his movie failed. Like, what, dude? What are you talking about? No one cared that Obama was black. Half black, by the way. No one cared that Obama is half black, raised by a white mother, and no one gives a shit. No one cared, okay? I mean, it got him elected. I know a lot of liberals were stoked on that. You guys care about the identity politics stuff, but that's less important to me than say, hey, what did the president do? Is he American leader? Is he helping our country? Is he making the right choices? That's what's interesting to me. What's interesting to liberals is this guy was black. President Trump is a white male. He's straight. That's why they hate him. And girls are great. And no matter what, they can make a bad movie, but we still got to support it. That's really what they're saying here. And that's actually, it sounds satirical, but that's actually a pretty good summary of what these idiots think. They're just totally focused on identity. This Paul Feig guy is obviously trying to imply the country's racist or something, like, oh, were all seething with racism for 8 years under Obama, and then that led us to attack the Ghostbusters 2016. Like, why? There wasn't even, it had one black chick out of the four characters that were main. That's not making sense, dude. Like, you just put a token black chick in there, and then, yeah, Leslie Jones got into some Twitter war with Milo Yiannopoulos, and she was like a big figure behind it. She was the one saying people that didn't like the movie are racist and sexist, and it's just classic excuse making, classic blame game. Ghostbusters people have been doing this since back in 2016, and that's why it's really sad to see them kind of popping back up with it now.
But they were just ready to explode. And so by the time I announced in 2014, or 2014 or 15 when I announced I was going to do it. It started. And then there's tape of Donald Trump going like, no, the women, Ghostbusters are women. What's going on? Like, it's crazy how people got nuts about women trying to be in power or be in positions that they weren't normally in.
Well, the problem was the women were trying to take over a male space and they ruined it. That's the problem. It could have been any other movie. You could have made a separate title movie and not gone with the Ghostbusters brand. That would have helped immensely. This movie actually could have done well, I think, if it was just called like Ghost Hunters or something. You know what I mean? Like Ghost Girls, Ghostly Gals. I don't know. Something like that would have done way better. But the fact that you took over Ghostbusters, you ruined it, you feminized it, and then also are attacking men. And this is another point that I think they're overlooking, is the fact that there's an anti-male angle to this. Like, there's anti-male here, and there's also an anti-white angle. And I think this actually reminds me of his Obama comment. Like, he said the country was seething with racism under 8 years of Obama, but actually that's not the case at all. We know that's not true, but there is some interesting part of that could be pointed out, and that's the fact that there was a lot of anti-white racism growing under Obama. That's when the liberalism grew a lot here in our country. That's when the SJWs took over. That's when this whole kind of political SJW stuff, feminists rose to power. And so, yes, when anti-white racism grows, then some white people are going to eventually start to stand up for ourselves and say, hey, we don't like being hated on, we don't like being pushed to the side, we don't like being talked trash about. Like, we're people too, we deserve equal treatment. And that's the kind of thing that kind of led to this. And that's also what happened with Ghostbusters. There was very anti-male angles there. There was very like, oh, women can do it better than men. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, we're gonna do our own thing. It's like, no, we're taking over a male thing. And that started that trend where lady reboots started happening in other properties like that. Ocean's 11, it happened. Other projects, Terminator basically turned into a lady reboot, and that's why people got really upset. It has nothing to do with hating on chicks, and really these guys are just too blinded by SJW stuff. I mean, look at this Paul Feig guy. He's always decked out with these really flamboyant outfits. Like, he is obviously a beta male. Like, he admits that all the time. He talks about loving his mom so much. He's like some kind of mama's boy. And there's nothing wrong with loving your mother, but there is a wrong thing with being this beta, like, kind of self-hating white male. And that's what I'm seeing here. And that's why I'm seeing these comments and this terrible response from Paul Feig, who's trying to blame his failures on a president he doesn't like.
And it was an ugly, ugly year.
Okay, so that's about end of the video. And I could understand why he thinks it's an ugly year. But really, for me, I look back at 2016 and I think it was amazing. 2016 was great. I mean, there was a lot of strife, there was a lot of controversy, there was some fighting and some problems, but end of the day, this is a turning point year, because that was the year, of course, Trump got elected. That was also the year the culture war started to change over and come back towards the conservative anti-SJW side, which in part was led by Ghostbusters. There is some truth to the fact that it was a political moment, and it really asked for it, though. They wanted to be this SJW feminist thing. They wanted to take over and bash the men, and they failed. And that's why it's a victory for our side. So they look back at 2016. Paul Feig obviously looks back at it as a terrible time, because not only did his movie do terrible and he failed as a director, but also his political party failed and Hillary Clinton didn't get elected. Trump became president. So things just started to stack up and do good for us. And I mean, in addition, for me personally, I had a lot of great things in that year too. I met my wife. I started this channel. Like, a lot of groundbreaking things happened in 2016. So that's why 2020 is also kind of equally exciting. Now, granted, we've been kind of derailed. I was looking forward to 2020 early on, but then we had this pandemic. Everything started to change. Things got closed down. I was looking forward to a lot of great movies that were supposed to come out this year. Now they're all delayed. So things have changed a lot. I'm hoping the election doesn't get the worst of it, though. It's still early, and I think we could bounce back. So that was the thing I was actually most worried about. Was I think a lot of this pandemic stuff is being overhyped and over exaggerated in order to try and steer the election. Things were going so well for Trump before. You got to remember, economy was awesome. America was doing great. Like everything was going really, really good. No unemployment, like all that stuff. And then all of a sudden this virus threw it for a loop. And that's the kind of thing that could turn this election around. Because before, I think Trump would have had it in the bag, like 99% Trump win. But now it's not so much. And that's what makes me worry. But we have lots of good information, a strong base, and we have terrible lying losers that are facing up against us. So it's a good sign, and I think we're going to do great. That about wraps things up. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Tell me what you think about Ghostbusters, Paul Feig trying to blame Trump, and all this other nonsense. And it's kind of funny this movie's coming back into style right now, isn't it? Tell me your thoughts on everything below. Also hit the like button to help support this video. And until next time, you guys have a great day.